We've got some silly season news to talk about today, as it looks like Kurt Busch might be the leading candidate to go to a second 2311 racing car. Ryan Newman also says he wants to continue racing next year, and Matt DiBenedetto says he's had no discussions with Team Penske at this point. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We have quite a few NASCAR stories to discuss here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight to it. We're going to go ahead and start off. We're talking about the Charlotte Truck Race officiating last night. So for those who did not watch the Truck Series race last Friday evening, basically there was an issue around 15 laps to go. You had Trey Hutchins' car who was basically stopped up at the top, and NASCAR did not call the caution. He was stopped up at the top of the track, and Johnny Sauter and Drew Dollar ran into him, and all the drivers were okay, thank God for that, but Johnny Sauter's car was cited. And in my opinion, NASCAR did a really bad job on officiating. But NASCAR came out with an explanation that they said right after the race. They said that at the same time the 14 had its incident, the 88 was smoking and speeding down pit road. The focus was on that and whether there was oil on the track that needed cleaning to avoid any further incidents. Once a collision occurred with the 413, we throw the caution. In my opinion, I think that this makes a little bit of sense to that, but still, you should be able to officiate both incidents. You should be able to officiate the 88 incident where that car basically had smoking. You should not be focusing on the 88 car that is smoking. Yes, that could cause an incident, don't get me wrong, but you have a truck that stopped on the track, and that is really, really dangerous. I understand it's very hard to see. It was a black truck, so it was very, very difficult to see for the spotters, and it's a very hard spot for the spotters to see. That being said, NASCAR should have been right on the money with throwing that caution. I mean, they threw a caution for Kyle Busch, who basically slid right away. They threw a caution for a tire that was barely there. They could have honestly grabbed at Kansas. But you have a truck that's legitimately stopped that is a complete danger that someone could honestly get killed, and you don't throw a caution. In my opinion, it's ridiculous. You should have more officiating, and that's something in that race control has got to get better on. I don't know if race control for trucks is different than the Cup Series, but man, they really need to do a better job, in my honest opinion, when it comes to that. And it's ridiculous that no one, in my opinion, was really, really watching that. They should have been able to watch it and been able to catch that. A truck is stopped on the track. It happened at Bristol Dirt too, where you had, I can't remember exactly who was stopped on the track, but Kyle Larson ran into the back of somebody. Was up on the high line in NASCAR. The guy was slowed down and stopped. It was Mike Marlowe, I believe, and they didn't throw the caution. Mike Marlowe's like, why did they not throw the caution? NASCAR has got to get better with the officiating, in my honest opinion. They've been doing a really bad job with that this year, and they've got a lot of work to do going forward, in my honest opinion. That's just my honest opinion on that. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Kyle Larson and sponsorship. According to Rick Kendrick, he says that he has talked to a lot of people and sponsors, and it's not going to be any problem getting a sponsor for Kyle Larson going forward. This is really good news in the Kyle Larson sponsorship, because that's one of the big things coming in this year for Kyle Larson, was there going to be issues for Kyle Larson getting sponsorship. And while he's had a lot of races where he has had HendrickCars.com and Nations Guard, which are both Hendrick sponsors, he had MeasureTech this past week in which he won the Coca-Cola 600, and he's also had Freightliner on the car, and Cincinnati Incorporated, and a couple races of Valvoline. And there might be more races of Valvoline coming soon. I'm really glad to see this. Yes, Kyle Larson made a mistake last year where he said a racial slur, but Kyle Larson has redeemed himself on and off the racetrack. And not only that, Kyle Larson has arguably been the best driver so far this year when it comes to performance. He's the first driver to lead 1,000 laps. He's won 2 races so far this year. He's been the guy to beat many, many weeks. He should have more wins than he's already had this year. He could have honestly won Kansas. He could have won Daytona Road Course if he didn't make that mistake. He could have won Bristol Dirt had he not got involved in that record Christopher Bell. He honestly could have won a lot of races this year, including Dover, which he dominated, but got beat by Alex Bowman on pit road. He could have won the Rebel 400 race, the throwback weekend, but basically Marcus Jr. had a better car overall. And he honestly could have won Circuit Americas had Chase Elliott had come down pit road. Kyle Larson has been really, really strong this year, and I think that sponsors are going to be willing to work with Kyle Larson as time goes on. Like I said, he made that mistake last year, but Kyle Larson has repaired himself. He's done great things on and off the track. He's been classy. And not only that, he's performing really, really well. He's a guy that honestly could win the championship this year. And I think that Kyle Larson will continue doing that going forward. And it's great to see that there's going to be really no issues going forward for Kyle Larson in the sponsorship front. It's really good news on that front. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Ryan Preece. As he had an interview recently, Bob Pockers, on, I think it was Saturday morning, and he talked about the sponsorship issues that he had. Remember, earlier this year, JT Doherty said that they were only planning on running 24, 25 races, because remember, the 37 car that Ryan Preece has been running this year does not a chartered car. Remember, chartered cars do not get a lot more funding. Like, they get, like, a lot more money than the unchartered cars do. So here's what he said in regards to that. He said he's planning on running full-time in all the races this year. He said, I'm every week here at Charlotte. I'm here at Charlotte, and that's all I'm worried about. As far as this goes, we had a great start. Our points position is not terrible, and as long as we keep having good runs, we'll be hard to miss races. This is really good for Ryan Preece because Ryan Preece, even though he's had kind of an up and down year, he started off this year really, really strong. There's been some bad luck, of course, that's hit Ryan Preece throughout this year, but they've been very, very solid in points, and they should be able to make every single race here. They're the highest team that is uncharted right now, and I would like to see Ryan Preece run more races. I also like to see Ryan Preece get more opportunities to run with more of a top-tier organization. I really hope they're able to run all year because it would be really, really cool to see Ryan Preece be able to finish off this year. I hope he's able to finish in the top 25 points. I think he's like right outside the top 25 points right now. He's been really, really consistent so far throughout the year. He's even ahead of Eric Almirola in points right now, which should tell you something about how bad Eric Almirola's season has been. But yeah, Ryan Preece had a solid year. I know that this year's been up and down. They had a really good start, and they kind of been falling back. But I really hope that Ryan Preece does get an opportunity going forward and will continue to have some strong runs going forward. And I hope that he gets to run the whole season because it'd be really, really cool to see that for sure. But it's great to hear the news that he's really hoping to still run every single race this year. I hope he's able to run every single race going forward this year. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we are talking about Tony Robbins. As it was reported yesterday by the Charlotte Observer's Alex Andreve that she said that Tony Robbins is considering becoming a part owner in NASCAR. And the organization he's looking to partner up with is Trackhouse Racing. He was spotted at the Coco 600 with Pitbull. He was with Pitbull's entourage, and he was there and basically is looking to get into NASCAR and become an owner of Trackhouse Racing. Trackhouse Racing has been doing a lot of big things over there. They have Pitbull being a co-owner with Justin Marks. You also have Ty Norris over there. And they have lots of sponsors that have been working with them. Coca-Cola, Comsco, Pit Play On Party. They've had a lot of sponsors come in that team, and they're fully sponsored for this year. Tony Robbins is a motivational speaker, and he is worth $500 million. And he's looking to invest in Trackhouse Racing. This is a major, major deal for Trackhouse Racing once again. That organization, all these new organizations, including 2311 Racing, which we're going to talk about later in this episode, they have been doing some really, really big things over at those organizations. They've had new investors come into the sport, and they've had new people that have been working with them, and they're fully sponsored throughout the year. K1 Speed also being another sponsor that's working with Daniel Suarez, who's the driver, and the diversity and the culture that they've been doing over there at Trackhouse Racing has been so, so cool, and also designer Kyle Sykes has been doing a lot of great things over there as well. But this is a major, major deal for Trackhouse Racing if Tony Robbins is to invest into it. I mean, what other investors are they going to get? Are they getting other investors that are going to come into the team? Who really knows? But this is a really, really big story going forward. We'll have to watch, see if this does come to fruition. But yeah, really, really cool that Tony Robbins is looking to potentially become a part owner of Trackhouse Racing. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Matt DiBenedetto. As Matt DiBenedetto had an interview recently with the media, and he says he's had no discussions yet with Team Penske about next year. He said, I'm pretty much just speculating like everybody else and taking my best guess at it. Remember, it is very rumored at this moment, it's pretty much expected to happen, that Brad Keselowski is going to be leaving the 2, and he's going to be moving over to Roush Fenway Racing to drive the number 6 car in a team called Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. Now, Matty D is in a contract year currently with Wood Brothers, and it's expected at this point that he is going to be out of the 21 cars. Austin Cindric is expected to go into the 21 car as of right now, but things could be changing going forward. Now, Matt DiBenedetto technically has option years to go through the 2023 year, so Team Penske could be looking to maybe bring Matty D into their organization. There's been rumors about that going on behind the scenes as of right now. Matty D, I think, should have an opportunity, maybe go to Team Penske or remain in the corporation. What I really think is going to happen with Matt DiBenedetto, though, in regards to contract talks and contract obligations, I think things are going to change. I think that Austin Cindric is actually going to be moved over from the 21 car, and I think he's going to be moved over to the 2 car. And there's a few reasons why I think that Austin Cindric is going to move to the 2 car. Number one, Austin Cindric's dad is Tim Cindric, who is the competition director and president, basically running the operations at Team Penske right now. Number two, Austin Cindric is the current points leader in the NASCAR Xfinity Series with 3 victories so far throughout this year, and he was last year's champion in 2020, and he's been very, very solid so far in his Cup Series starts, running in the top 20. He's not as good as Brad Keselowski is, but Austin Cindric has been very, very solid when he's ran Cup races, so I really think that Austin Cindric is going to remain in 2. On top of that, Matt DiBenedetto has said he's very intrigued of running the Ford performance car, the Ford, that they're going to be running next year with the next-gen cars. So to me, I think that this is what's going to happen. I think Austin is going to go to the 2 car, and I think that Matt DiBenedetto, unlike what originally was planned, I think that Matt DiBenedetto is going to end up back in the 21. The reason originally was reported because we thought Brad Keselowski was going to be returning to the 2 car next year, but now we've had pretty much everything's, it's all but confirmed at this point that Keselowski is expected to go over to Roush Racing. We're going to have to watch and see what happens in regards to this, but this is a major story. Matt DiBenedetto, I think, has been a very, very solid driver with Brothers. He's not been as good as what Ryan Blaney was. But yeah, Matty D, I think, definitely had a chance to return to Wood Brothers, and I hope he does get to come back to Wood Brothers and race in 2022, because there really isn't any other driver in the Penske Corporation right now that really could go there, unless he gets someone like Tyler Reddick to come over, of course. I really think that Matt DiBenedetto will end up returning to Wood Brothers next year. We'll have to see what happens going forward. And now we're going to jump on to first of 2 major stories in today's episode, as we are talking about Ryan Newman. As Ryan Newman had an interview. Now, like I just talked about a second ago, it is speculated at this moment that Brad Keselowski is expected to become the owner of Roush Racing with Roush Keselowski Racing, and he's expected to drive the 6 car. Now, Ryan Newman is a current driver of that 6 car, and it is a contract year for Ryan Newman here in 2021. Now, he talked to the media in speculationists, and he says that he wants to continue racing here in 2022. And he says he has not accomplished what he wants to accomplish. Now, what Ryan Newman would like to accomplish is winning the championship. Ryan Newman almost won the championship in 2014 with 0 victories, but had he won the Homestead race against Kevin Harvick, he would have won 1 race and won the championship in 2014. Now, he's had a little bit of resurgence. In 2019, went over to Roush Racing after not such a great end of his time at Richard Childress Racing. He did not make the playoffs in 2018. In 2019, Ryan Newman went over to Roush Racing and was able to make it, I believe, to the round of 12 in the NASCAR Cup Series Plus, and a very solid year with a lot of top 5s and a lot of top 10s. 2020 was a down year for Roush Racing in the 16, but this year they've had a resurgence, as he currently sits 21st in the points with, I believe, 3 or 4 top 10s throughout the year so far. Ryan Newman, I think, is a guy that's not always had the greatest years so far, but he's a guy that's won quite a few races in his time. I mean, he is a Daytona 500 champion. He is a Brickyard 400 champion. He's won a lot of races in his time as a NASCAR driver. And I would like to see Ryan Newman get an opportunity to go somewhere where he'd be successful. So what teams could he go to if he is not returning Roush? They don't expand to 3-car operation. There's a chance they could do that, but I don't think Roush expand to 3-car operation. I think Newman will be out. I think there's a few teams he could go to. Number 1, I think he could go to Chip Ganassi Racing. We're going to talk about Chip Ganassi Racing at the end of this episode. But Ryan Newman could end up at Chip Ganassi Racing. That team is not the best organization in the world right now. I mean, they didn't have a great weekend this past year, weekend in the Coke 600. But I think that Ryan Newman could have a decent career over there. And I think he'd do better right now than he'd be doing at Roush Racing, even though Chip Ganassi's been struggling throughout the year so far. He could also end up at Stewart-Haas Racing. I know he and Tony Stewart kind of had a bad end of their time, and there was issues between them at the end of 2013, but he would be a veteran driver going to the 10-car. Remember, Eric Almirola is in a contract year, and Eric Almirola has not been performing. I think if you put Ryan Newman in a SHR car, I think he'd be pretty successful. The other team is Kaulig Racing. Now, Kaulig Racing is expected to go full-time next year. I know a lot of people want Kaz Gralla to be the driver of that 16 car because the number that they're expected to run is 16 or Justin Haley. But I think if you put a veteran like Ryan Newman in there, a guy that's won a lot of NASCAR Cup Series races, I think he'd be pretty successful. I think Kaz Gralla is more likely to go there, but Ryan Newman could be up in the running for that as well. Those are some rides that I consider for Ryan Newman to go to. I would like Ryan Newman to have an opportunity at a better organization right now going into 2022. I don't want Ryan Newman to retire. I still think there's a chance he could retire then this year, but I think that there's also a chance that he could come back next year. Hopefully, he does get that opportunity to come back and get to race in 2022 full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we are talking about Kurt Busch and 2311 Racing. It was reported by Jordan Bianchi from The Athletic that Kurt Busch is currently the top candidate to drive a second car for 2311 Racing in 2022. Kurt Busch was not on my radar. I thought that there was a chance maybe it'd be someone like John Hunter Nemechek, who is in the Toyota Sable driving the 4 car. Harrison Burton, who's driving the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity Series. Brandon Jones, who drives the 19 for Joe Gibbs Racing. Other drivers like Ty Dillon, who's already driven for the organization, or Daniel Hemrick also drives for Joe Gibbs Racing, or even Matt DiBenedetto, who drives currently in that Penske Corporation right now. Kurt Busch was not the driver that I thought. Now, remember, a couple days ago, this past week, Kurt Busch tweeted out that he said that he still wants to race next year. He says he's not leaving, basically confirming that he's returning. But he never said that he was going to be returning to Chip Ganassi Racing, and that he says he still wants to race in 2022. Because remember, Kurt Busch wants to race the next-gen car. And then it's speculated he wants to go there. Now, according to the report that came out from that, it says that he has not had any contract talks with CGR or 2311, and language in his contract requires him on talking to other organizations. Now, currently, I believe that contract clause goes through the 1st or 2nd of June. So Kurt Busch, in a few days here, could start talking eventually to those conversations about going over to 2311 Racing or remaining at CGR. Now, let's talk about this first. At first, I was like, what? Kurt Busch to 2311 Racing? But honestly, I think this would make a lot of sense for Kurt Busch. You think about this for a couple reasons why they could pick him up. Number one, Kurt Busch is a NASCAR Cup Series champion. He won the 2004 championship driving for Roush Fenway Racing, and he's every year seems like he'd won a race. 2019 drive for Chip Ganassi Racing, he was able to win at Kentucky Speedway. Last year, he was able to make it to the round of 8, and he won at Las Vegas and had a shot to make it to the championship 4, but he wasn't that fantastic and was very, very soft. So far this year with Chip Ganassi Racing, they've kind of taken a downturn this year. Kurt Busch had not the greatest year so far. He's coming off a very bad run in the Coca-Cola 600, and Chip Ganassi Racing hasn't been great. There's another reason, too, why Kurt Busch also could be running. You think about sponsorship. DraftKings recently came on board, and they've been in the conversation of expanding. Denny Hamlin says that he's been looking for a veteran driver, and sponsorship is another key thing. You had DraftKings that just came on recently, but you also have Kurt Busch, who brings some funding as well. Monster Energy has been sponsoring Kurt Busch for a very long time. They sponsored him since his days back in 2012 and 2013. And they sponsor him for a majority of the year. And they also do have sponsorship with another driver in the Toyota Sable, Ty Gibbs right now, who drives for the Joe Gibbs Racing Organization. Remember, JGR and 2311 do have a partnership in a sense, and they do work together with the TRD programs. And also, Kurt Busch, the guy that knows how setups work, and he overachieves in the cars that he drives. So I think those are the two key reasons why Kurt Busch could drive over there at this current moment. Plus, Kurt Busch could go over there and help out Bubba Wallace, who seems like he's been on the upswing. I know that Coda didn't go great, but he finished 11th at Dover, and he finished 14th in the Coca-Cola 600. Ran very, very well, honestly, in the Coca-Cola 600. I think that 2311 team has ways to go up. And if you bring Kurt Busch over there, he's not going to immediately go out there and win a championship like he did with Roush Fenway Racing a few years. But Kurt Busch, in my opinion, similar to Brad Keselowski expected to do with Roush Fenway Racing, I think he could go over there and help the performance of that team. He knows how setups work. I think he could also help Bubba Wallace become a much better driver. Plus, be working with guys like Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan, of course. And I think that this is something that could work out for Kurt Busch. I think that Kurt Busch, if this is to be expected and confirmed, I think Kurt Busch will do very, very well. Now, what are my expectations for Kurt Busch if he is to go over to 2311 Racing? I think Kurt Busch absolutely could have a shot at winning a race or two, at least 1 or 2 races a year. It seems like he wins 1 or 2 races this year. He's done that since around 2016. He won 1 race 2016, 1 race 2017, 1 more race in 2018, 1 more race in 2019, and 2020 is looking to win another race and continue that consecutive streak of winning races all the way back to 2014. I think Kurt Busch absolutely could win a race or two with 2311 Racing, and I think that he could help the performance of that organization overall. I really think he should take this deal. There are a couple race course being a champion. I also think that he could also help that organization become a much better team as they are now. They want to talk about expanding to a couple car operation. The big question is the charters, though, as another big thing is the charter system if Kurt Busch does go over. That being said, I think that they'll get a charter from Rico Racing if they're the most likely team that will end up getting a charter next year unless Trackhouse Aspire Motorsports ends up buying a charter out from them, getting like 4 charters, having 3 cars next year, which would be really, really unfortunate because we know Rico Racing is planning on downsizing to 2 or 3 cars next year, and I think they're going to be selling one of their charters for a pretty good price as well. And 2311 Racing, I think, is the most likely candidate to take that. Hopefully, Kurt Busch does have an opportunity to go there. I'm very shocked that he's the guy in the lead for the running of that car, but I think it'd definitely make a lot of sense if he is to go over and run for 2311 Racing next year. So, Anyway, that is going to be for today's NASCAR news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on so you're notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support my page as well. Link description below for that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. What are your thoughts about Kurt Busch potentially going to 23XI Racing? How well do you think he will run there? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Ryan Newman's future? And do you think Ryan Newman will run next year in 2022? And if so, what team do you think he'll run for next year? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you like so YouTube can recommend more of these great videos out to you guys. Do that, I greatly and truly appreciate it. Anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great and awesome NASCAR content. Take care, everybody.